after World War II, the Soviet Union is going to get into a Cold War with the United States. They're afraid that eventually we're going to invade them. 20 million Russians die in World War II, and they've got some legitimate concerns, all right? So what they do is they try to incorporate all these areas. These are going to become part of the Soviet Union. They're republics, like like states like California, that don't want to be there. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, much of Ukraine and Moldova, those are European. And then down here, the cans, they're all Muslim, okay? They speak Arabic, all right, and over here too. And Russia's gonna, well, the Soviet Union's gonna spend all their time trying to keep them in check. We're gonna talk about satellite states. They control Eastern Europe. Those aren't Soviet states. Those are just like, hey, you're our friends, but you have to do what we tell you, like Poland, East Germany, and whatnot. All right. After 1989, Soviet Union is going to start collapsing. The Berlin Wall goes down, and by 1991, Soviet Union is dead because they put all of their money into military, into the space race, trying to get to the moon and other places, and into Olympic sports. And the people just didn't have consumer goods. Believe it or not, the Soviet Union collapses over toilet paper. And now that you guys have gone through this COVID-19 thing, you can understand that. Going to the store and things aren't on the shelves, people got fed up with it. So these places are going to want their independence. And Russia's been really, their solution to everything, going back to the SARS time, is to use brute force. And they've been trying to keep the Muslims in check because they don't want it spreading into their lower, where Muslims are. That's why they attacked Afghanistan in 1979, tried to put the Taliban in check because they didn't want that type of Islam spreading, that 8th century version of Islam spreading to their Muslim areas, okay? And so these guys are all independent now, all right? And you can see, we think of Russians as the guy in Rocky, who did he fight? He fought
Ivan Drago?
Ivan Drago, yeah, who's actually a Swede, the actor, yeah. All right? But Russia's made up of a lot of different ethnicities. I think I said 39. And here at the Ural Mountains, all right, everybody over here is European. Everybody over there is Asian, okay? Asian Russians, all right? Should I do it? Okay, all right. And you can see sometimes it gets crazy because this was Siberia and people would get sent over there to work. So there's actually a big Ukrainian population. It's not on this map, but it's popped up another map. Kids have said, what are Ukrainians doing back there? That was punishment. You would go work in the mines and on the railroad back there. Okay, alrighty. And then here, I think this could be a question on the test. What's been going on in the Ukraine? They've been fighting, and this part of the Ukraine is European, okay? All right, what do they have here? Percent of native Russian speakers. Yeah, see, that's below 11. These guys want to be part of Europe, and this is the capital. And a lot of Russians moved in over here. They want to be part of Russia. So Russia claims irredentism. We want to reunite our people back together. So guys with no insignias, green uniforms, but no insignias, actually invaded, and Russia by force with ships, they just flat out took Crimea. All right, funny story I told you, 1954, Khrushchev, the premier, is there partying and he's drunk and he gives Crimea back to the Ukraine because the Ukraine was a Soviet republic. What's the big deal? Well, now that the Ukraine is independent, Putin needs to flex some muscle to get his poll numbers up when the economy's not good. So they take Crimea back, and then he gets to take off his shirt and ride a tiger, which he has actually done. The tiger was declawed though, all right? Yes, he wrestled the tiger, he rode the tiger. Russian news is much better than ours.
You could have made a Netflix series.
Yeah, okay. All righty, and I think that is you.
Yes, sir. All right. So the Caucasus Mountains is right here between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, and all you Caucasian people, that's what you're named after. Okay, so what they're showing us here is all the various ethnicities within the Caucasian Mountain or the Caucasus region. Okay, so you have people who are Azerbaijani, you have Armenians here, and it's very small. It's about the size of Colorado, not very large. Okay, and all of this area, remember, was part of the USSR. So the communists, they require strict allegiance. Everyone has a common enemy. If they're feeling oppressed, they can hate the Soviets. Okay, but after the Soviet Union breaks apart, these ethnic differences start to arise. Okay, so especially between here, Azerbaijan and Armenia. Now, Armenians, they're Christians. They're really, really ancient Christians in this area, and they have an interesting history. If you go back to the 1900s, there was this thing called the Armenian Genocide. So we talked about Hitler earlier. That's where Hitler learned all of his tricks of the trade, was by studying the Armenian Genocide. Okay, the Azerbaijan folks. The point is that I want to get back to is in 1991, when the Soviet Union breaks apart, there are these areas that are contested. Okay, and so Armenia basically says this area, especially I can't pronounce it, but it's Nagorno-Karabakh. Okay, that area, it's largely Armenian. You can see it's in the middle of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan won't give it up. Okay, it was gifted to them by the Soviets. Okay, and so conflict is taking place mainly because of ethnic reasons. Okay, let's see. Over here, we're going to look at Central Asia. There's 5 countries here, and these are more like nation states. Okay, so Uzbekistan. This part of that Uzbekistan, you can see, it's not very populated. It's fairly peaceful. Turkmenistan, they have access to the Caspian Sea. Okay, they're fine. Okay, pretty peaceful. But when you get into Tajikistan here, okay, and Kyrgyzstan, you start to run into some issues. Okay, so one of the big issues here is these are landlocked countries, and what you tend to find is areas that are economically sound tend to embrace lots of different ethnicities. Okay, if the money's flowing and everybody has enough, there tends to be less ethnic conflict. Okay, where it's the opposite tends to be true. Okay, so it's just planting a seed for you for the AP exam. Okay, if you get a question like that. Okay, that's just kind of a generality that you can go back to and rely upon. Okay, so let's see, Tajikistan. You would think that they would be peaceful. They're 80% Tajik. Okay, but they're pretty angry with the Russians because the Russians took a lot of their prime agricultural land, and they are fighting against the Uzbekis here. Okay, even though they're both Muslim and they both speak a similar language. Okay, Kyrgyzstan, same kind of thing. Where are they? Here they are. Okay, the Kyrgyz, they speak a similar language to the folks who are from Uzbekistan. Okay, they're fighting over scarce resources. Now up here in Kazakhstan, okay, Kazakhstan's they're actually a little bit, if you look up here, you can see all the various colors. Those are different ethnicities. You're like, well, how does this work? Well, look at where the ethnicities, look how they're distributed. And then also look, they have access to the Caspian Sea. They also have lots of oil pipelines, okay? Which is one reason why Russia would really like to pull Kazakhstan back into, make it part of Russia, okay? Irredentism. Okay, colonies. So our colonies today look like these tiny little islands. Okay, we have primarily decolonized. All right. So going back in time, a little history lesson. The reason why colonies began was for 3 primary reasons: gold, God, and goods. Okay. So Spain, England, France, Denmark, Portugal, all those places left for riches. They wanted to grow rich. They were industrializing, and they needed the resources. Okay. They also were primarily either Catholic or Protestant countries that wanted to missionize. and they needed more converts, right? And then they also needed markets to sell all their industrialized goods to. And so gold, God, and goods, okay? So early on, these countries here in Europe start that colonization process. The United States, we jump in the 1900s. We're a little bit, remember, developing just after Europe. Our industrialization happens, and we need a market. We're producing all kinds of goods, but we need people to sell to. And so what we do is we start to colonize places like the Philippines, okay? Other areas that might come up, maybe you're thinking of, it's not really a colony, but like Puerto Rico, okay? Puerto Rico is actually a commonwealth, and it falls underneath the jurisdiction of the United States in some ways. So like, we've talked about FEMA and some, relief when there's devastating hurricanes and stuff like that, okay? But they don't vote in any of our elections, okay? So they're a commonwealth. You don't need a passport to go there. You could drive there, right? But at the same time, they're not going to be voting in our elections, okay? So commonwealth versus colonies.
Alrighty, so World War I, you've got these, European countries that are fighting each other over power, and at the time, these Europeans had colonies all over. You can see that, what was it, 1885, 1886, somewhere around there. The Berlin Conference, they divided all up. Then they're going to divide up Southeast Asia. You can see that the Dutch are down there, and they've been there for quite some time. It says Netherlands, but the Dutch. And then after World War I, we see Europe divided up more, but everybody still keeps their colonies. After World War II, you're going to see these people start clamoring for independence, especially in the 1960s. You see a lot of new countries form down here as they want to get rid of their colonial rulers. And the colonies, the Europeans just can't afford it anymore, keeping a military presence there. Okay? All righty. Okay, so these are a lot of the slides coming up. I looked at the next few slides, and we're gonna talk about those in the pictures, because everything comes up in each of these. Like here, cultural boundaries. All right, the first one. Now this is the Republic of Ireland, and it's 95% Catholic, okay? And these are 32 counties. But up in the north here, the northern 6 counties, they're like 65% Protestant. Remember we talked about the British moved in the Scottish and moved in Northern Englanders to work in the factories there. So they have a Protestant background. In 1922, when the country finally went independent, they wanted to be part of the United Kingdom. Well, the 35% who are Catholic, they want to be part of Ireland, and they're actually going to start fighting. Sinn Féin this goes on, gosh, from the 1960s, late 60s to early 90s, all right, where they're fighting to get this back into Ireland. And then ironically, as Mr. Hillstrom mentions earlier, what changes it at all? A rockin' economy, all right? Remember we talked about they're getting, loans from the UK, getting fiber optic cables, getting all new infrastructure. They speak English, they're educated, they have universal health coverage. All these jobs come in, and everybody's working, and when you're working, you get married. And when you're married, then your problems become emptying the garbage, mowing the lawn, things like that, not going out and fighting the Orangemen who are the Protestants. All right, so this is an example of cultural boundaries or cultural conflicts. And would be an interesting question. I don't know if they would go this far, but Ireland wants a soft border here. They want to continue trading with their brethren in Northern Ireland, but this is part of the UK. And remember, UK said no to the European Union. We're on our own, all right? We don't need you people. We know our life is going to suck more, but we're going to do it as a matter of pride. And the Irish up here are going, we don't want our life to suck, all right? So this is an issue in the whole Brexit debacle.